What are you doing, woman? Why are you here? And what is your purpose other than to be the most useless human being ever created in a film? Hey witches, I'm AD and welcome back to my channel. I'm here today to talk to you about the dumpster fire that was The Craft Legacy. A movie that we never really fully asked for. I was appreciative of the fact that they wanted to create a sequel. I was very pleasantly surprised that it was a sequel and not a remake, but they just didn't do what they should have done. So now I'm gonna go through with you guys what I feel like was good about the movie and then everything that I thought was bad about the movie, which is a lot. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this wreckage that I'm about to create. So starting off with the good, I do enjoy the fact that they created a sequel out of this movie that we love from the 90s. It's something new and fresh. It's got a take on the kind of Witchtok-y vibes. The aesthetic was really beautiful, but the problem was that they had so much of the aesthetic and not enough of the substance. They needed more substance with that aesthetic. So I did enjoy that they didn't try to recreate everything. It's its own movie with new characters and everything like that. But the problem is, who are these characters and why do I care about them? To be honest, I don't remember any of the girls' names. I don't know if they even mentioned their names when they introduced themselves. All I know is that they're earth, air, fire, and then the new girl is water. Of course, we know her name is Lily. We end up finding out that her name is Lilith, and that's a little bit of a clue as to where her origins come from, who she may be. I liked the introduction. I liked that they were there to help her. There's a sisterhood and everything. But the problem is that we didn't have any backstories for the girls. We really have no idea who they are or what they're all about. We know that one is really annoying and kind of all over the place. It's kind of just like TikTok crazy woman gone mad even more. And then we have one who is fire. She has the fire coming out of her hands, which I thought was really cool. We find out later that she is someone that wishes that she had more black friends, wishes that she wasn't as alone, I think. And I wanted to hear more about her story. Like, okay, you give all of that in that moment when you guys are sharing your truths and the lie or whatever, but give me more. I want to know more about you guys so I can really care about your story and what's going on. And then we have the other character who's trans, which I thought that could have been a whole nother part of the movie where we would learn about her backstory, learn how she like really feels about her magic and everything that comes towards her with her life in general, the things that she's gone through as being like a trans woman, and so much more. We don't get any of that. We don't get anything really. We just have these girls that are having a good time and doing whatever they want, which is fun in its own right. But if you're creating a movie about these girls and about their lives when they finally figure out that they have this amazing gift, you want to learn more about what they're doing with it and how things are transpiring in a psychological way as well. You want to learn how their lives are being transformed by this, not just them like, oh, I'm gonna do magic and this is fun and all this glitter and blah 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 and this is great. It's like, honestly, I don't know who they are and I don't really care about them, to be honest. Like, oh cool, they're witches, that's awesome. But witches have so much more going for them in their lives and so much more that they have to do and go through in their lives, and I really would have been interested in seeing more of that. Give me more of that so I can really grasp who these characters are, so that if something bad happens to them, I'll really care about what is going on in that sense. One thing I did like was the fact that they did the spell on Timmy and it made him really grasp himself as a person and bring him more into his like feminine side and him understanding like himself, giving his truth about him hooking up with his friend and all of the stuff. He was the only character that we really felt some emotion for, or that I felt some emotion for, and then it was kind of robbed from us when he's just suddenly killed and they suspect that he killed himself, when it's just like, give me more of why that might have happened. Like, these girls suddenly say, oh my god, our spell worked, and like, oh my god, he had too many spells going on and he killed himself and it's all our fault, so let's bind ourselves. Like, wait, You're gonna bind yourselves completely without thinking about the situation, without thinking about more that could have happened, really giving yourselves the time and the energy to really hone your craft and understand that these things shouldn't happen the way they did. Maybe give yourselves that time to learn more from more than one book. Like literally they use one book in the entire movie, which is of course the name of the movie, The Craft. But witches don't just use one book, they cross-reference everything. They use so many different resources. There's so much more going for them in their craft. So the fact that these girls, yes, they're teenagers, yes, they're a little naive, yes, they're having fun, but they only use one book that tells them everything they need to know about their craft. Come on, that is so not believable. Give me more, give me substance. Tell me more of what they're learning and what they're doing, and not just like, oh, this looks so cool, we're just gonna have fun and do whatever. Like, that works at first, but obviously, like, you know, they fucked up. Give me more of them learning from their mess up and not just like, oh, okay, we're gonna unbind yourselves because there's something going on. So, moving on from that, here we go to the toxic masculinity that somehow always gets into these feminist movies and shows nowadays, but it doesn't really do it in a good way. It doesn't really show you how to defeat that toxic masculinity. They literally just come together in a circle and they're like, okay, bam, we're good. Let's help others learn from their mistakes and stuff like that. And that's, I guess, what they did with Timmy. They helped him understand and learn from his making fun of women for normal, natural bodily functions. And that was the only thing that I really was like, okay, they did this really well. But then they kind of like just spat in your face and we're just like, yeah, okay, like we're just gonna pretend that didn't really happen. When it's just like, dude, this is everything that you could have drawn upon and you could have done so much more with this. It was so disappointing for them to just like pretend like none of that happened. Also, Timmy was great. I loved his transformation. He reminded me of Eric from True Blood, which was like when he got his memory wiped and he was just like, I don't know what's going on, Sookie, help me. Like, yes, I love that. I love that so much. But they could have gone so much further with it, having him understand and maybe helping them in certain situations and things like that, instead of just killing off his character and saying, oh, okay, he killed himself, and then finding out later that it was someone else that did it. I don't understand why they chose to do it that way. There's so much about this movie where they could have done things in such a different way. It would have made it more understandable, and it also would have helped us really care about the characters. Like, I cared about Timmy's transformation to an extent, but then suddenly it's just like, okay, now he's dead, and it's like, oh, well, that sucks. But there wasn't more substance. There wasn't more to the character and to the understanding and anything like that with all of the other characters. Like, give me more substance. This is what I want. It kind of read like a really bad episode of Charmed, the new Charmed, not the original, but it could have also been a bad episode of the original Charmed. Like, why did I pay $20 to watch this hour-and-a-half long movie that really doesn't give me anything? And also the ending, which was very anticlimactic, which was literally them standing in a circle and burning someone. Like, geez, like really? Give me more. I want so much more to this. Moving on to the toxic masculinity in the father. So throughout the film, you kind of get this weird vibe about the dad where sometimes when he talks, sometimes when people talk to him, he like has this strength about him that makes you afraid of him, very intimidating. And when he talks, people just shut up. And I thought that was interesting. I was like, okay, he's got to be the bad guy. I kind of knew that from the second interaction that the main character had with him because of that. And it was a little disappointing in the fact that when you have like an evil character in a movie or a TV show, you kind of want to build them up to where you understand who they are and understand maybe why they're doing certain things, understand that they're like, they have something more to them than just the fact that they're evil, so that you can really feel for them before the big reveal happens where they're evil and you're like, oh my god, this person is crazy, it's scary, or whatever. It's kind of what they did in The Craft, the original, with Nancy. Like, she had a shitty life and she needed to control everything because of it. And because of that need for control, it made her go crazy. Like, that's kind of like, oh man, you completely understand everything that happened to her and why it happened. And there's so many well done films that have that character dimension and that dynamic where you really understand why this person is the bad person that they are. In this film, it totally falls flat. You don't really care about any of the characters. You don't really understand why anything's really happening or anything like that. There were so many moments where things happened that weren't explained at all. Why was one of the boys sleepwalking, and why was he in her room? Like, we could have had a little bit more of his backstory, why he sleepwalks. Maybe there's something going on in the house that's creepy. Also, the moment where she opens the door and he's like watching porn super loudly. If you live in a household with 5 other people, there's no way you're not using headphones when you're watching porn. Like, come on. But in general, I felt like the boys were useless. Everyone in this movie was just useless. There's a way of using your characters to develop other characters. There are moments when, like, yeah, one of the boys was friends with Timmy, so that's how he got into the house. The little boy was kind of sympathetic to the new girl, understandable. And then the older boy, like, literally doesn't talk to anyone, and he's mad because he hooked up with his brother's friend. Like, but they are pretty much useless. Like, we could have had this entire movie without them at all. Like, useless characters. Give me more characters that I actually care about. Speaking of the worst characters you can ever imagine, the mother. Why would this mother suddenly marry some guy or be with some guy that really hasn't been introduced to her daughter's life, really? Who her daughter hasn't even met his kids or hasn't even integrated with the family or anything like that. Why would a parent suddenly move their child into a household where they don't feel any connection to whatsoever? Like, on what planet does this mom live in? She seems like a nice person. She seems like she's got her shit together in some way, but she is she's terrible when you really think about it. Like, why would you do that to your child? Also, I understand, like, she didn't tell her daughter Lily that she was adopted because of whatever, but if you know that your kid has powers, you need to learn something about those powers so that when they come up, maybe you can help them go through them. She literally did absolutely nothing to help her daughter in any sort of way. She was the most useless mother that you can ever imagine in a film or TV show or whatever. She was awful. She was terrible. She puts her daughter into the situation with this toxic masculine guy where she doesn't know anything about his kids or anything, puts her into a new school, doesn't tell her about her powers and the fact that she could eventually hurt someone if she didn't know how to use them. Like, what are you doing, woman? Why are you here? And what is your purpose other than to be the most useless human being ever created in a film? Like, come on, dog. Like, you can do better than that. There's so many moments where I was just like, why am I watching this? Why did I spend $20 to rent a film that I don't even own? I guess it was just all for you guys so you could see what I thought about the film, and I feel like I was robbed. I want my money back. Moving on to the big reveal, which wasn't really a big reveal at the end because we already knew that this girl was related to Nancy in some way because of the trailer, which was interesting because there are so many moments in the trailer that weren't in the movie. Like the picture that she saw of Nancy, I don't remember that being in the movie. And also, We Are the Weirdos Mister ended up being in the dark scene rather than the light scene that it was in the trailer. So I feel like they gave us like little teasers, little tidbits, and then they changed it in the film, which happens sometimes. I totally get that. But the execution of the film was not good, guys. Like, can you just get real witches to help you out in these moments? Like, I know that Fairuza Balk, who plays Nancy, is a real witch. Like, maybe she could have helped you out. Maybe she could have gotten more scenes in the film. The big reveal in the end, like I was saying, was not a big reveal because the moment that the mom said you're adopted, the first thing that came to my mind was, oh, okay, it's Nancy. She's the mom because she was in a mental asylum and she needed help, yada yada. Cool, but we only see like 2 seconds of her in the film, and I want to know what the fuck happened. Did she get pregnant outside of the mental asylum, inside of the mental asylum? How did she meet the mother? Like, what was that interaction? Like, we have the explanation from the mom, but I want to see that for myself. I wanted to see like maybe a flashback of her like giving her the baby or something like that. Did Nancy ever get out of the asylum and live her life for a while only to come back? Like, I would have loved to have that little story maybe. Like, if I had created this film, it would have been maybe the beginning of the film, having Nancy writing down in a journal, having Nancy live her life outside of the asylum only for her to return back into it. Give me some of that. Also, give me more character development with all of the characters. Help me understand what they're going through, why they're doing the certain things that they're doing. And I want to know more about the secret society of men. Like, that would have been really interesting. Like, them going in secret more or something like that, so that we could really understand that like maybe this was a family thing. Maybe all the boys were like involved in the secret society from their family crest. Like, there were little hints, but they didn't really give us enough to really go on. I'm curious to know if they're going to be doing another film. I hope not. If they're not going to do it correctly, if they're not going to give us more substance and more like oomph, give me more of the characters and what they're doing instead of just the glitter and the aesthetic. Like, come on, you have so much potential. They could have done so much. They could have gone into the nitty-gritty of all of the characters from the original and bringing all of that substance into this film. This was a sequel. We needed more. You didn't give us anything. You just gave us little tidbits of possibilities of things that could have happened, but really nothing to go on. With that said, I feel like this is more of a rant rather than like a review. I'm not completely sure. Let me know what you guys think about this movie in the comments below. Honestly, I don't think it's worth it. This really left you kind of scratching your head like, oh, that's it? That's all I get from everything that this movie could have been? That's all? What were you guys trying to do with this film? Because I'm wondering why there were so many plot holes, why there was such little development, and why the ending was just like that and gave us nothing more in return. I'm so curious, I'm so confused. If anyone has been attached to the film, just tell me something about this film so I can really grasp what they're trying to do. For the most part, it just seems like feminism versus toxic masculinity. Head to head, feminism wins. Okay, that's cool, but you could have done it in such a better way. So yeah, that's my review for The Craft Legacy. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below, and I'll see you next time.